r/AskReddit, ex-inmates of Reddit. What was the stupidest thing you've seen a new inmate do on his first day in prison? Told a kid there was a pool out at yard. Guard saw him waiting to go out in shorts with his shower towel and asked him what he was doing. Kid said, "I'm gonna go swimming outside, it looks nice." Don't think I've laughed so hard in my life. It's unoriginal but always funny. This one is strangely wholesome. It's just funny light hazing. Worked as a corrections officer. Guy got busted for sexual assault of a minor. Figured everyone else in the tank was on similar charges, so began talking openly about it, feeling he was safe. We had to subdue 5 guys who jumped him in the rec yard. Guy was sent to the hospital as he was fairly unresponsive. He was sent to protective custody after that. Kid came in and I assume he has watched a lot of movies cause he figured he'd fight the biggest guy on the range. LOL. He wasn't even the toughest guy in the hospital he woke up in. Obligatory not me, but I know a guy, and his cellmate was a young 19-year-old kid. The kid was confused and in the course of talking about their lives admitted he was bi. The guy I know told him, "Hey man, that's cool, but don't tell that to anyone else in here, seriously." I saw this show with a gay prisoner in it. He wanted to be in solitary. Somebody tried to rape him, so he grabbed their balls and squeezed hard. Then, with balls still in hand, he twisted them and flipped himself over. This idiot walked right into a Mexican gang meeting and almost got beaten up. Source: I'm the idiot. Edit: I was in jail, not prison. My mistake. Again, I'm idiot. Second edit: since many people are asking, from what I understand, the difference between prison and jail is this. Jail is for sentences of less than a year, whereas prison is for sentences of over a year, varying from state to state. Jails is run by the city or county. Prisons ran by state or federal government. You can go to jail to await your trial before sentencing. Then after be sent back to jail or to prison depending on how long and whether it's a felony or not. Prison is for felonies. Tell literally everyone how he was going to escape and showed off all the tools he was using. Was he stopped by the other inmates or by guards? Not shower. For weeks, he got his clothes ripped up and he was thrown half naked into the showers. They also tuned him up pretty good. Did anyone know why he refused to shower? Like, was he just gross or was he afraid soap would be dropped? Not an ex-inmate, but an ex-company. Dude came in on drug charges. First thing he does upon walking into the pod is announce loudly enough that I could hear that he got drugs past the dipshits in intake. Yep, not the brightest bulb. That one. LOL. Was he telling the truth or just bluffing? The truth. They were in his ass. They didn't catch it on the bend and cough. Kid gets booked in, hits the unit and starts borrowing food and other commissary items. Before he knew it, he was $200 in the hole. Problem is, in jail and prison, most people who are willing to loan items out expect 2 or 3 of the same item back. You know, interest. Very easy way to get yourself indebted is by borrowing any food or other items. Never get in debt while incarcerated. Skinny kid, hippie type, got busted with some weed. Someone else on the range was getting beat up for something or other and the kid tried to intervene. Just said, "Hey, leave him alone." Got beat to within an inch of his life in the shower. Pro tip: in jail, mind your own business. Call his grandma and just cuss her out and talk her like dog shit because she didn't want to put her house up for collateral to bail him out. Anybody do anything to teach him manners, or just mind their business? A slight twist. We had a pink wet floor sign that we would put up in the entrance to the showers, so everyone knew there was someone in there jerking off. The fun game was to watch the new guys, myself included, innocently walk into the entrance to the showers that very first time, past the pink wet floor sign, and then see him come skittering back out a few moments later. Was there ever a time where the guy didn't walk out? Excuse me, sir, there seems to be a mistake. I'm supposed to be getting out of prison today. You're in the wrong line, dumbass. Reach across someone's food. Is this a matter of courtesy or do people have to assume you're gonna duck with their food if you reach over it? Goofy looking kid, curly hair, thick glasses. He comes in and for some reason he befriends me. He starts telling me what he did. Sexual assault if a minor. I told him not to be telling nobody that shit because it'll get you in trouble. The rest of that day and the next, I bailed out. By then, I could hear him from across the hall telling other people. Not surprised if he's been kicked around a few times. LOL. I read this wearing my curly hair and thick glasses. Thankfully I'm not goofy looking though, so it doesn't apply to me. When the skinny little street thug white kid walked across the yard and threw a Mayana at a bench full of full-blown Crips. Didn't see him much after that shitstorm. Admit that he was in for sexual assault and being a pedo. And then it was about 8 PM and we found out he was a chronic masturbator and he would not stop jacking off in his bunk. He was 22 and it was jail, not prison. So at that moment, we had 12-15 people in our cell. Some guy woke up from a nap and thought he was having a seizure, so he went to go check on him. What a goddamn shock they both had. Edit. Spelling and grammar. Father-in-law did 12 years on a second-degree murder rap back in the very early 90s. He told me that one time this new guy plopped himself down at the Hells Angels table and started eating breakfast. When he was told to move, he ignored them. After breakfast, the COs ended up having to cut through about 6 rolls of duct tape to get the guy loose. He never sat near the HAs again. Not me but my dad. Guy came in bridging at what he did. Said he was a monster and the toughest guy around and that he could take anybody on in the pen. Giving him the benefit of the doubt. He apparently was a big and tough guy. Come to find out though, he was in for the assault, rape, then murder of a woman and her child. He might have been big and tough, but not after 5 big guys beat the absolute shit out of him and practically killed him. As most of you know, the one thing all prisoners can agree on is that anyone who messes with kids or women are on an immediate hit list. Edit. The women thing might have just been a rule amongst him and the PPL he ran with. Hey OP, I hope you have a good first day of prison tomorrow. Got busted for smoking weed with 2 buddies. When we put in the holding cell, one of them wanted mark the event by carving his name in the paint on the cell door. When we got put in a cell later, they came back and took him to solitary for a week. So my dad's currently convicted and the craziest story he's told me is one of the newer inmates was young and arrogant, always spouting off bullshit about how unaccountable he was. Then one day, another inmate packed up his items, went into the younger inmate's cell and tried to strangle him. The younger inmate was that ducking annoying. He survived. The attempted murderer is in max, and when the younger inmate came back from the hospital he was learned spouting bullshit. Packing his stuff up in advance is really what makes this story. Where I was in prison, they utilized 40mm soft round launchers to respond to group disturbances. Let me tell you, they weren't soft. Kid comes in thinking he's still hardcore from juvenile hall because guards there didn't do anything when people fought. Decided to up and join a gang that he knew nothing about on his first day. Thought he was tough and started to diss the gang they had high tensions with at the time. And started a group disturbance. COs respond. Tell him to get down. He refuses and curses at them. Boom, 40mm to his face. Was an accidental shot to the face according to the CO. Face was distorted as hell after. A fractured skull. On his first day. A lot of juvie badasses get to come to Jesus moment when they get to big boy jail. Saw this weird, unshaven, scraggly young guy with a yellow beanie once who said he agreed with the Latin kings on social issues but fiscally he was more of an Aryan. He ended up joining both gangs. One guy bragging about what he did to get himself in jail, other dude showering barefoot. Great way to get convicted. Great way to get jungle fungus. This weird guy named Robert from the TV show 60 Days In has a couple stories that could be in this thread. The stupidest may have been when he covered the prison camera with a sheet. Went to solitary 30 days. He quit the program halfway. He's the dude that said this is like a vacation for me when he was in solitary. Punch the biggest guy on the block to establish dominance. How did that go down afterwards? I'm gonna take a shot in the dark and say badly. There was an old myth that if you challenged the meanest guy in your block to a fight, everyone else would leave you alone. It's true. No one will torment you if you are dead. Kid tried it and got dropped off the 5th tier. First day in Gen Pop. Last day in Gen Pop. Most guys just want to do their time alone. Most rape and violence in prison is about debt or tax. If you play it straight, 98% of guys will just leave you alone. Ducking someone up on the yard makes your time worse, not better. Loss of privilege, of time in solitary. Most people don't want that. Most of the straight up psychopaths are in 23/1 lockdown anyway. You get in debt or shoot your mouth off and you will get settled or taxed. Both are to be avoided. Eat the candy bar found on his pillow. Is that bad? Knew a guy that did some time and apparently this is a real and serious thing. Suffice it to say nothing's free in prison. There was a new guy who came in one day. You could tell he was gay by his mannerisms. A few days into his sentence, he was forced to suck a guy's dong. He bit it off. I was not ready for that twist. Just going to generalize. Small town folk who are used to being the biggest and baddest. Big fish small pond types who think they are going to be king when they walk in. They usually are dominated pretty quickly. Dominated being either beat or made into a beach. Best bet if you go to prison, hopefully no one ever goes, is unless you know someone well connected on the inside, just keep your head down. Focus on yourself and do your time. It's going to be boring, menial, and seemingly endless, but you don't want to get caught up in any gang stuff or be snitching. There's a code and system in prison that needs to be followed, and if you walk in like king shit of Turd Hill when you are a nobody, you will learn real quick that you ain't nothing. Saw in one of those jail documentaries, young man about 18, had no gangs affiliation of any kind, was in for some kind of minor crimes, decides to try to impress the Nazi people by lifting weights with them. He tries to do leg presses, turns out he couldn't even lift 100 pounds and barely got any reps done. The whole Nazi gang laugh at him while he was doing it. Edit. Someone linked the clip. They actually laugh at him for not lifting 240 pounds, not a 100. I found a hypodermic needle in my thin mattress and tried to go give it to the guard. I was bum rushed by an inmate, whose it probably was, and told that if I had given it to the guard, I would have faced a pee test and solitary. This was day 1. On day 3 I asked to trade laundry detergent for a back rub, and only after I did so did I realize that everyone thought I was gay. I was a very dumb 18-year-old white girl. Start a fight that she couldn't finish. This may not have been his first day, but I will never forget this. This while I was in the intake tank, which is the first tank or section you go into after being processed in county. This young kid comes into county and keeps complaining that he doesn't get his cannabinol and other marijuana related prescriptions in jail. He was really arrogant and constant pissing everyone off. During count one day as we were all in our bunks, he starts complaining again and then says to the guard, "What if we all riot immediately like 10 other guys yell very loudly we don't know or agree with him?" The guard then says, "What the duck did you say?" The kid then continues about rioting and that he has rights. Everyone in the tank ducking stays like frozen in their bunk, trying their best to be non-threatening and also show they have no interest in what this moron is saying. So the guard picks him up by his throat and slams him into the wall. After scaring the kid shitless, he explains he has a new charge for inciting a riot. Kid gets hauled off to solitary. Never saw him again. But I heard he spent the rest of his 30, 60, 90 whatever amount days in solitary. Absolutely insane to me that he'd say that in a ducking county jail. Not wearing shower shoes in the shower. Gross. That's where everyone jacks off and comes all over the floor, not to mention WE disease they've got. Not gonna lie, my first thought wasn't that but foot fungus. Guy thought the hot pot was for everyone and went to medical with his jaw broke for talking shit when he got called out. I got bunk restriction while I was in jail on one of my first night. Twice a day they did roll call where we all had to sit on our bunk, be quiet while the officer came bunk to bunk and checked all of our wristbands and made sure we were all who we are. Halfway through he was doing this, someone rips the loudest, fattest, longest wet fart I've ever heard in my life. Me having the mind of a 5-year-old burst into laughter. I've never heard a fart like this in my life. A few other guys laugh, but even thinking of it now I giggle about it. Anyways, the officer is like, "Alright, settle down," but I can't stop laughing about it. He tells me to calm down, but I tell him through my tears of laughter I literally cannot help it. I really couldn't. It was the funniest thing that happened the few days I was in there. Anyway, he gets pissed. I try to explain I'm not trying to be rude and disobey him through my laughter, but he isn't having it. Luckily he just gave me bunk restriction and didn't punish everyone, but I could see the TV from my bunk, so I just hung out the rest of the night. Too long, didn't read. I couldn't stop laughing at the biggest fart I ever heard in my life and got grounded to my bunk for a night. Edit. Obligatory. Wow, my top comment is about farts. Could be worse. Went in when I was a young idiot. Our pod was all bunk beds. No cells. Just the room with beds. And a side room with the TV. It was a unit for all the people working the same job. New guy comes in. Little white dude. Quiet and kept to himself. Until one night, out of nowhere he starts sprinting around the room singing at the top of his lungs in the tune of Black Sabbath's Iron Man, but changed the lyrics to I am the N-word man, running through the hood from the Ku Klux Klan. Everyone was just kind of frozen for about 15 seconds, seriously confused. Then someone tripped him and then it was just mayhem until the CO could get enough help to disperse the crowd. I remember being surprised he survived. Everyone in the unit had steel toe boots for the job we did, holding them and hitting him in with them instead of wearing and kicking. The scene afterwards where all the guys are trying to figure out whose boots are whose, and comparing who's had the most blood was freaking surreal. Here's one from a good friend of mine, we'll call him T, who spent half his life inside. Picked a fight with the local inmates over something minor to establish dominance. The guy was European, and Europeans were kept separate from locals with good reason. There would be full-scale gang wars between the two sides now and again within the prison. None of his fellow Europeans backed him up. Hell, some of them even jumped in on kicking the ever-loving shit out of the newbie. T doesn't think the guy made it. My family attorney told me about one of his clients who was sentenced to 2 years for a federal case. Non-violent. Someone gave him really bad advice about how to survive in federal prison. He followed the advice and found a big tough looking guy on the very first day. He beat him up severely. The victim turned out to be a tough looking guy who was actually a gentle giant who didn't fight back much. I ended up with 2 broken legs and a fractured rib. My attorney's client got 4 extra years added to his 2-year sentence. That's what I call stupid. This was about 15 years ago. Not sure if the guy survived prison or not. Maybe not the stupidest, but don't talk about your crime. Not an ex-inmate, but my mom's friend is a retired prison guard for a max security prison. He'd been there for a long time and a lot of the inmates liked and respected him. There were a few instances where new inmates would try to be difficult or attack him to impress the older inmates. The newbies would get beat up pretty good and wouldn't cause trouble for him anymore. Don't mess with well-liked guards. Guy came in, got on the top bunk. Within 10 minutes dude rolled off it and smacked his head on the concrete. Started to have a seizure. Guards eventually came and just videotaped him for a while in the middle of the room. Eventually they walked him out when he stopped, but then he ran into the wall and fell down, then started to seizure again. They just kept filming. Nobody really thought he was having seizures, but he hit his head pretty bad, so they took him to the infirmary. Pretty much just hearing younger guys lie trying to impress. Odds are if you're a real G then you can tell who's who. The ones who get caught lying are the ones who have the hardest time because trust level is low to begin with. Include lies and yay. I'd say this is mostly for JDCs, but county jails and prisons have the same problem, I'm sure. Asked a friend of mine who I was in rehab with. He said, dumb young guy comes in and borrows money, not able to pay it back. The sound of him being raped was horrible. Saw this fat white kid who became Muslim and then moved into a 4-man cell with 3 black guys in Walla Walla. The next day the COs were photographing the blood-soaked mattress out on the tier for all of us to see. So this actually about me. My first day inside, I sat down at a table in my block. Some guy came over and said it was his seat. Me being young and dumb thought I'm not gonna get punked on my first day, so I told him it's my seat now. He walked away and came back with 3 other guys and they beat me pretty bad. Believe it or not, I was the one who got the mark for it too. Guard wrote it down as I initiated the fight, spent some time in the hole for it too. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.